quote, and I won't get this right, and whoever said it is far more important and much more eloquent than me, but they said something along the lines of a definition of insanity is using the same thing in perspective as how countries. That's really important to bear in mind. Yeah, I don't really know what to say. I've written something and I'm going to read from that. I don't really know what to say other than I feel a heavy weight in my heart, recognising the great struggle that is ahead of us and how few really seem to understand where we are in the stream of time. And I mean really understand. There are those in positions of power, our so-called leaders, who when needed can talk the right talk, but that is all they do. Use empty words that we know won't translate into any meaningful action, because they haven't before, despite knowing what is and what was at stake, and because they continue to subsidise fossil fuel companies, because they legally allow private companies to release raw sewage into our seas and waterways. They are literally selling the lives of future generations of our children and grandchildren down the river. And as I mentioned that, I just want to refer to a video I watched this morning about what's happening in terms of climate change and climate crisis and ecological breakdown. Because I said we talk in the West about future happenings, but we forget how many people right this now are suffering as a result of ecological breakdown, that are suffering as a result of the climate change that has already happened. Added to this, because of the failure of our billionaire-owned media and education system that requires us to remain sufficiently ignorant so that we voluntarily comply with an economic system that is destroying our planet, that is responsible for the sick mass extinction that we are experiencing right now. This ignorance leads many good people to believe that all we need to do to ensure our futures is to ride our bikes more to work, to recycle, to boil just as much water as we need for our hot drinks. And these, of course, are important things to do because that is about personal responsibility. But we need people to understand that this really isn't going to cut it. We must not allow the ruling classes and its instruments to pass the burden that they created onto working peoples to sort out. And I have seen, and all of us have no doubt seen, language around this, which is one of the reasons why I believe some working people are dismissing the ecological and climate emergency, because having been screwed over by the system so many times before, they cannot afford to bear this cost also. We are teetering on the abyss, and for us to have an even remote chance of not condemning our children and grandchildren, if they are lucky enough to survive, to a hellish Mad Max landscape of subsistence, we need radical change, and we need it now. To get there, we need radical action, and the only way that we're going to achieve this is by demanding it in a way that will make people wake up. And if those that lead us refuse to do what it takes, then we need to take the reins and bring that change ourselves. Because as uncomfortable as it is for us to confront the reality, we are in do or die time. We need an end to an economic system that demands infinite growth on a finite planet, that puts profit before life, that plunders the natural treasures of our beautiful home here on Earth, and puts a price on resources that were gifted to us by Mother Earth, a price that impoverishes communities around the world, and an economic system that has created the military-industrial complex where shareholders of arms companies make trillions, not just on the backs of broken bodies and destroyed minds, but the decimation of our environment and through it the moral fabric of our society, as it tells us to turn our eyes and hearts away from refugees drowning in our seas as they desperately try to reach safe lands away from the bombs that are often dropped by our government's military forces. And if not, in any event, they are built in our nations and sold by our leaders to some of the most heinous regimes in the world. If we have not reached this understanding that our whole system and all its institutions need a complete overhaul, then we really have not yet understood the magnitude of what it is that we are facing. There are alternatives available to us, such as a resource-based economy, but the window of opportunity is closing fast for us to make that transition. So to our government here on the island, I say to you, start doing your job. Stop selling our island's future to
to the highest bidder. Stop allowing our beautiful Jersey to be destroyed, because if you don't, we will hold you accountable. And to our Chief Minister and those other politicians who claim to be Christian, I remind you that in Revelation 11:18, it states that God will bring to ruin those ruining the earth. But if God won't, you will force us to make sure that we do. So yes, my heart is heavy, and sometimes I find it incredibly difficult to breathe. But I know one thing, that we do not have the luxury of despair. We have a job to do, and morality compels us to get on with it. So let's do it.